things just took another big turn in the Commanders' defensive coordinator search. One candidate virtually eliminated, but two candidates just got a whole lot stronger for the Washington Commanders' defensive coordinator position. We're going to go over that in today's video, as the Commanders would have liked to have that defensive coordinator hiring done by last Friday, but they don't have it done. And that was the word on the street, was they wanted to have it done by last Friday. They don't have it done. And I think it was because one candidate, but now that candidate is virtually eliminated. Let's talk about it. Make sure you guys hit the like button on this video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel as well. Trying to reach 4K subscribers. Please hit the hype button as well to reach it out to more people. Make sure you do all that. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it's free. It takes 2 seconds. Make sure you guys do that if you could. Now let's go ahead and get into this video. So Kevin Stefanski was hired as the Falcons head coach last night, and him and Jeff Ulbrich have had deep talks about Jeff Ulbrich just staying in Atlanta. And we know Atlanta's owner, Arthur Blank, really just wants to keep Ulbrich as well. Like, Ulbrich might not have had a choice to leave anyways. So Jeff Ulbrich is virtually off the board for the Washington Commanders. I think that was the strongest candidate. I think Dan Quinn wanted him the most. Jeff Ulbrich was the linebackers coach with Dan Quinn in Atlanta in 2015. So, I think Dan Quinn wanted him really bad because of his experience, because of his age is pretty much perfect, like 48 years old. He's not too much on the older side of things, but he's also not too young. They want an experienced play caller. Jeff Ulbrich was the guy. But let me read to you what Adam Schefter said the other day about Kevin Stefanski. And this was before the Falcons and Kevin Stefanski made an agreement to, obviously for Stefanski to be hired as the next head coach there. This was before. So Adam Schefter said this: the Falcons are kicking off their second round of head coach interviews Saturday by bringing former Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta for another round of talks. Stefanski would be the first candidate to have a second interview with the Falcons. Then Jeremy Fowler of ESPN quote tweeted that, saying, Stefanski has done research on potentially working with Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich in Atlanta per sources. Owner Arthur Blank would like to keep Ulbrich, who would be a top coordinator candidate on the market if available. So the plan's going to be, what it sounds like, is Kevin Stefanski, and I'm really surprised he's not bringing his guy, Jim Schwartz, over, but Kevin Stefanski is going to try something different. He's basically going to say, hey, Jeff, you got the defense, right? I'll run the offense. I'll coach the team. You got the defense, though. The defense is all yours. You can have your defense. And Ulbrich, why would he complain? Why would he want to move? Why would he want to, change his situation, right? He does have a lot of options. And if he would be free, a lot of teams would go and inquire, to try to get him. But he's not going to be free. I think the top coordinator candidate for the Washington Commanders is now gone and off the market. I think him and Kevin Stefanski are going to work together, but that doesn't mean it doesn't open up other opportunities for the Washington Commanders, as Jim Schwartz now is available. He did not go with Kevin Stefanski to the Falcons, with Kevin Stefanski. So this is going to open up Jim Schwartz. I've not seen a single thing about Jim Schwartz in any team interviewing him, and he's not going to get head coaching opportunities either. So I don't know what the current status of Jim Schwartz is. Heck, Kevin Stefanski could still bring Jim Schwartz on. I'm not saying that's, that couldn't happen, but right now I think it's obvious that Jeff Ulbrich and Kevin Stefanski are going to try to get something together, and they're going to work together. That leaves 73-year-old, I believe he's 73, Jim Schwartz open. The Commanders want an experienced play caller. They want a guy that's done it in the league for a while, according to multiple reports, and Jim Schwartz could fill that gap. However, we have not seen, again, no interviews, right? No interviews with Jim Schwartz. We don't know what his status is. I'd love if the Commanders could bring in Jim Schwartz. I think his experience would be, that tops Dan Quinn, right? He's been around the league for so long. He's done it for so long. He doesn't really necessarily bring the energy as one of those younger guys that we would maybe like more, but that man knows how to call a defense. So if you bring Jim Schwartz here, I'm fine with that. That's why this defensive coordinator search just got a lot more interesting, because Jim Schwartz is now available, and he's one of the smartest defensive minds in the league and has been for a while. That's why most of you recognize his name, because he's one of the best defensive minds in the league. We brought in, Brian Flores, Jonathan Gannon. Okay, we're not going to get Brian Flores. I think let's keep it realistic here. We're not going to get him. If we did, would I love it? Of course. We're probably not going to get Gannon. If we did, would I love it? Of course. But this hiring for defensive coordinator, expect it to be pretty underwhelming. I think a guy with options would not come to Washington for tons of reasons, right? And Dan Quinn's going to have his paws all over the defense of whoever comes in here. So I don't think many people would want to put themselves in this situation, especially with the situation that Dan Quinn's in. He may only have 1 year left, and you want that stability as a coordinator. So a guy with options is probably not going to come here. But we watched Carl Scott last night put on a masterclass with the Seattle Seahawks. The Commanders interviewed him already. He's already been in for an interview. However, the Seahawks are still making their playoff run. The Seahawks are still going. So we cannot hire Carl Scott until the Seahawks are eliminated or they win the Super Bowl. And that could ultimately be what the Commanders are waiting on. Heck, I think they were waiting on Jeff Ulbrich, but we'll see. I think Carl Scott, bring me Carl Scott. Like, if it's not Brian Flores, bring me Carl Scott. That's my second option. That's how highly I think of him. However, the Commanders say they want a guy with defensive coordinator experience, with play calling experience, and he just doesn't have that. Carl Scott does not have that experience yet. However, if you look at this Seahawks defense, I mean, heck, here's a stat for you. Kyle Shanahan has coached 163 games for the 49ers. His team has only been held under 7 points 4 times in his career. 2 of the 4 have come in January 2026 against the Seattle Seahawks. The pass game coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks is obviously Carl Scott, the guy that brings so much energy, the guy that lights this Seahawks defense up. You wonder why the Seahawks defense is faster than everybody else, is stronger than everybody else, and is better than everybody else? It's because of Carl Scott and the energy that he brings and how good he is as a pass game coordinator. And I think he deserves a promotion up wherever it is. Can it be the Washington Commanders? Would they take a shot on a guy that has no play calling experience? A lot of people are going to say, well, they did that with David Blau. But we've gotten specific, multiple reports that the Commanders want a defensive coordinator with experience. Multiple reports. Can they go against those reports and say, we're going to take a risk, we're going to take a chance? Because if they did, I would be in love with the move. I love Carl Scott. I think he's a great pass game coordinator. I think he just lights a different kind of fire under the Seattle Seahawks defense. And if you look around at that defense, in that secondary especially, they're just faster. They're just stronger. They're just better than everybody else. And that's because Carl Scott. So bring me Carl Scott. He held the 49ers to 6 points. You heard that stat that I just told you. I think bringing Carl Scott in here would be one of the best moves that the Commanders can make. I think he's definitely one of those guys that where you look at his career and you say, like, yes, that guy's ready for a promotion. That guy's ready to be a defensive coordinator. Someone's going to hire him. I just don't know who. Because obviously the Seattle Seahawks have Mike McDonald calling the plays, right? They don't need a defensive coordinator, but that opens up Carl Scott. He can go wherever he wants. I think this would be perfect because it's not like Carl Scott has a whole lot of options. Like, yes, he could probably go to a lot of teams. If you have a defensive coordinator vacancy, you're probably getting, an interview from Carl Scott, right? But I think that he would come to Washington. I think he would like to work under Dan Quinn. I think he would like to get that experience. And I think he would like to work with this defense, quite frankly, and just really build us back up. And again, his energy is unmatched. It kind of is like an Al Harris. Like, it seems like an Al Harris to me. Just a younger guy, a guy that, has no experience calling plays, but a guy that has a bright outside. And then you feel like when he gets that promotion, like he can be a very, very solid defensive coordinator in this league. So we'll see what the Commanders ultimately do, but things definitely got a lot crazier. Jim Schwartz, Carl Scott, watch out for those guys. Jonathan Gannon already been interviewed. Watch out for him. Brian Flores, watch out for him. Like, this is where things really start to get interesting. The dominoes are falling among the head coaches in the league. When are the Commanders going to get their defensive coordinator? We will see. But Jeff Ulbrich is basically taken off the board, so that sucks for us. Anyways, you guys get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Hopefully the Bears lose tonight. Do not want the Bears to win. And then there is a 3 o'clock game, and I'm forgetting who plays. Texans Texans and Patriots play at 3 o'clock. Rams, Bears at 6:30. Yeah, that's what it is. So you guys enjoy those games today. Hail to the Commanders as always. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.